After an 0-7 start to the season and extremely loud calls from the fan base, Tre Ford finally gets the call to steer the ship for the Edmonton Elks as they head to Regina for a date with the Riders. Can Tre Ford build off his 3 touchdown drives to end the game? Last week, Will Ford sparked the defense to step up and limit the big plays. Elks, Riders, Saturday Night Football in the Canadian Football League. But first, this is the Green and Gold Kickoff Show live from Century Casino Sports Bar and Lounge. Matt Iwanyk, Jay Milne with you here just off of Fort Road, where we are for every kickoff and a post-game show right here on EdmontonSportsTalk.com, on TuneIn, on iHeartRadio, as well as those watching on YouTube. Jay's got the headset. I've got the microphone because the other headset's with Dusty out in Regina as he was doing the morning show.
Those were epic morning shows. Just him in that red chair and his blue basketball shorts.
Just sitting back, very comfortable.
It was very comfortable.
He may never want to come back to the studio. He may never want to come back to the station.
Watch yourself.
He's got the other headset, so you're my ears for this show, Jay. You are my ears, and so are the listeners. If something's not sounding just perfect outside of my voice, let me know, because I could correct all those other things. I can't correct my voice. Let's take a look at the starting lineup for your Edmonton Elks. And Tre Ford, he is getting the start for the Elks.
Who?
Tre Ford. He's finally getting to be behind center. The men protecting him from left to right: Ivy Foucault, Cordy, Richards, and Boyko. Leak is the running back. Green is the fullback. Lewis, Gittins Jr., Mitchell, Jones, and Mayala. That is the receiving core Ford will be looking at tonight. On the defensive side of things, the D-line: McKnight, Curtis, Oakman, and Brown. The linebacking core: Morgan, in between Anderson and Moncrief. While the secondary has Gray, Bratton, Purifoy, Jackson, and Bynum. Beatty continues to be the kicker. Julian is the punter. I'm assuming Javon Leak will continue his kick return duties. Jay, you got an injury report for us?
I do. As Maddie just alluded to, Javon Leak is going to be taking the snaps at running back, which means Kevin Brown is out. He has a shoulder injury. He's on a 1-game injury list. Marcus Lewis is out. Now, that's a bigger issue. He's on the 6th game. It appears to be something to do with his foot. But given that, Bynum jumps back in at the strong corner. That's going to be an interesting matchup to watch tonight. And John Rankin steps in at running back. And looking through some of the things that have happened in practice all week, I would expect him to see quite a few touches tonight. It seemed like he was a big part of that Edmonton offense, at least during practices. So might be a name to watch, because he does resemble more of a Kevin Brown style running capability, as opposed to Javon Leak, who's more hit the hole and get through it. So we'll see where that goes. But that is that is the injury report. Not much going on, but
But Kevin Brown being out, that's the big thing.
But they haven't really used them anyways. So
right, but last year with Tre Ford as the starting quarterback, that's when he rushed for basically 1,000 yards.
Yes.
And so, and losing your starting running back, no matter what, whether you use him or not, that's a loss. But Javon Leak looked pretty good last week when he came in relief of Kevin Brown for that short period of time.
The first play that they ran with Tre Ford at quarterback at the helm, they ran a delayed draw up the gut for 25 yards with Leak.
The Edmonton Elks are taking on the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Shea Patterson is still the starting quarterback for the team, as Trevor Harris. He is getting close to being returning from the 6-game injured list. Not available just yet. I think he's eligible next week to come off of it. Honestly, for the Riders, though, I wonder if they were really just hoping that he maybe takes a little bit more time, because Shea Patterson has looked good. They've got a running back injury as well. A.J. Ouellette's still out. Frankie Hickson is the starting running back for them. And then their receiving core: Emelis, Ajo, Johnson, Bain Jr. Ajo. Sorry about that. Canadian.
Local kid.
He's also on Lieutenant Eric's fantasy football team, starting in the Canadian
He went
spot.
down to Clemson.
That's right. That's where he was.
He was from Ainley, Harry Ainley.
Weather out in Regina. This game right now is 26 degrees. Humidex, it feels like 27. Partly cloudy, 60% chance of showers and a risk of thunderstorm later tonight. So that should impact. But maybe we see a little bit of rain. We are going to find out. On the show today, we will hear from Tre Ford. We will get to our cool bets props of the game. Momentarily, I'll get to the game day bet that I built. We'll get to our keys to the game prediction. We got our question of the night, 3 stories, lots to get to. But before I do that, Jay, you're at practice this week.
Yes.
What was the vibes down there like? Was there anything you really picked up on just being at practice on Wednesday this week, which was their first day on the field leading into this game?
Well, to be honest, I was terrified to be there. I've never done that in my life, and now with a certain badge around my neck, I get to go down there and hang out with our boy Hernan, check things out, and big thanks to Hernan. He was a gent. He was a savior, but it was neat. It was neat to see the ebb and flow of that practice. Being in Commonwealth, sometimes they don't practice in there. Sometimes they're in the
Field house.
The field house. But to see that and see the enthusiasm around practice. And one thing I will note, I had never seen so many deep balls thrown in offensive period. So for those that don't understand, generally you come out and you do stretch, you do your rundown, you go through your, get your body loose, get your body warm. Then you go, for certain courses it's different, but it was nice to see that they go right into offense versus defense, ones on ones. Get that tempo up in the practice. And if this is any sort of an idea of what's going to happen with Tre Ford at the helm, that they throw the ball downfield. And we got to look at that last game, albeit it was only for 9 minutes and 43 seconds. But we've asked that question several times, Maddie, whether it be kickoff show or post-game show. Why aren't the Elks pushing the ball down the field, taking those shots? You call those shots in football. Sometimes it works out in the favor of the receiver. They get a big play. Sometimes it's called defensive pass interference. That was something that was not seen, and I'm excited to see if that's going to be a change in the philosophy of the offense tonight. That was one of the biggest takeaways. The looseness of the team. I must admit, there was not... Sean Oakman, by the way, is probably the most terrifying human on the planet.
Really?
He speaks like... he almost has a Chewbacca-esque to his voice, and he talks a lot. And he backs it up. So that was a takeaway. But aside from that, it was a real loose feeling. It wasn't. I wasn't reminded of a team that's 0-7, and maybe that's not exactly what you want to hear as a fan. But I think it's better than the alternative, which would be uptight and everybody's quiet and everybody's, it's a tight feeling. No, that was a complete opposite. It was a loose team, and Trey Ford alluded to that in his post practice press conference where he said this team is in the locker room does not act like an 0-7 team. So some positives coming out. I mean, we'd be remiss if we denied that was a different Edmonton team that we saw for the last 9 minutes of last game.
And there will be those that will say they went up against a prevent defense.
I could give two, what.
Well, I value that a little bit. The two things I will point to, though, with this is the first part I will say is that there was a blitz where Tre Ford got around it and hit his receiver.
Yeah.
That wasn't prevent defense. When you're
that
blitzing,
was not.
It's not prevent defense. Also, to go 3 for 3 in drives, it's hard to do that. Like, we see a lot of quarterbacks come in and prevent defense. They don't go 3 for 3 when it comes to touchdown drives. Just on the passing, McLeod Bethel-Thompson this season has taken 248 attempts passes. 14.5% of those have been 20 yards or further down the field.
Yeah.
He's only attempted 36 passes.
Good get,
Trey
Matty.
Ford last week, he threw 17 times. 4 of them were 20-plus yards. That was a 23.5%
Little
attempt.
different.
So right off the bat, almost a 10 percentage point more of Tre Ford last week going to. Now, they were down. They were down, so there is a little bit to that. But MBT, just this season, his percent, too. It was 41.7% going deep. That's not a bad percentage for
That's
a deep
really
ball.
good.
For some reason, they just didn't want to continue with that. So,
well, and let me clarify. I'm not saying I don't give a rip about the prevent D.
No.
I understand that.
You're not
I don't
hold
care
that against
because
them.
No, because I don't care who it was.
Yeah.
That team needed a spark, and it was clear as day to see that not only did it spark the offense, it sparked the defense. It sparked the entire bench. It brought everybody together that, you or I have not necessarily seen. So I don't. That's not the point. The point is that it was a positive experience for the team at the end of the game, and I guess we'll see how that leads into.
Does it translate?
And I can't help but think it does. I think And hand up, I told Maddie earlier in the week that I was going to wear my dunce cap tonight because I was Mr. MBT, Mr. Macbeth. Look, I guess to be determined, but I wasn't necessarily wrong about Macbeth. But he's not winning games for this team. If Trey Ford comes out and leads this team to a victory, I don't care if it's 1 point or 100 points, a W, then I'm going to be maybe signing up for your fan club. But
I am the president of the Tre Ford fan club. Just for one more time,
officially,
no one else is the president.
Nobody else.
There's only one Marty who's the president of the Tre Ford
There's
fan
only
club.
one Marty, and he's right here, my Marty. So you leave him alone. But if they can come out and do that tonight, you'd have nothing else to say other than why the hell didn't they do this earlier?
We're going to find out. We are going to find out. We are live at Century Casino Sports Bar and Lounge, where every day is game day. Today, the daily special, prime rib sandwich, which is delicious. I had it a few weeks ago. That might be where I go tonight. You could also get the cheese and jalapeno smoky, which is the game day special. Every Elks game here at Century Casino Sports Bar and Lounge. Did I hear something that they might be running out at 6 o'clock or loggers? Is that what?
No, I had one when I got here.
Okay. Well, I thought maybe I heard her say something that they're running low or something, but
No,
I guess
no,
I
no.
heard that wrong.
No, she asked me just as we came up here. She's like,
Okay.
do you want another one?
6
And
o'clock
I
or
ain't having
lager,
one until
it's on special.
there's a victory
You're not having another one until there's a victory? You had one today.
on air.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Come on down. We're here just off of Fort Road. You can see that for those watching on YouTube, you can see the wall of TVs. It's a great time watching here. And maybe we're going to get an appearance for Tube Socks.
I heard a rumor. There's
Well,
something
I don't know.
out
He
here.
didn't say he's coming. He just asked if we're going to be here.
Maddie, can I get to the PJ inbox for one quick second? Because
That's the Paris
where
Jewelers inbox.
That's where Tube Socks was chiming in. But Scalding Gord came in and said, "Okay, the Elks changing QB seems good, but it's what Iwanyk wants." So that brings up two questions / concerns. One, do we want Matt to be ever to be proven right? Sorry, Scalding Gord, I think he already is. And two, has Iwanyk been right?
Well,
God, this
yes,
I know.
have. I'll say that.
Listen,
I've been right on this season.
for now. You sure
I've-
had your you have your
100% I've been
shine.
right.
You have everything to celebrate
No,
right now.
I've been right this entire season, and I'm going to go
Yeah,
with the
you
victory lap with everyone else, because it hasn't been just me saying this. A lot of fans
Yep.
were saying this. But it wasn't about Trey Ford actually being a legit starter. That wasn't what we were advocating for within the official word of the Tre Ford fan club was not 100% this guy's going to be definitively the greatest quarterback we've ever seen in Edmonton Elks uniform. It was you were better off this season developing this young guy or seeing if he could be a starting quarterback while taking the savings that you have of Tre Ford and building a better overall roster. And in the end, what we've seen is not a great constructed roster. And that's why we have been right. Imagine what this team could have been had maybe they added an extra member of the secondary, had someone else on the defensive line, and had someone else on the offensive line to bolster this team. That's where we were right, and why I could do a little bit of victory app. Now, do I believe Tre Ford is going to be a starting quarterback in this league? Yes. Do I want that with the Elks? Yes. Do I need him to go out and prove that now? Absolutely. And then I could take a second victory lap for that one. But there are two separate
there's only
ones for
one.
that.
I think you're still finishing.
No,
you're in like
the
the
one side
no.
was
This is a
Chris
400
Jones-
meter race.
Chris Jones screwed up the construction of this team, and he was wrong, and that's why he was fired.
Okay,
And
so that's
why Tre
100
Ford-
meters.
That was the first. No, they're two separate races.
No, I'm talking. You're halfway through the 400
No,
meter dash.
I did. No. That was the 100 meter. This is the 200 meter. They're separate races. I'm running in two races here. And all the listeners out there, I speak for a lot of them on this.
Okay.
We're right on that. Let's get to our question of the night, which credit to Glue Guy right here for coming up with it, because I just didn't know where to go with it tonight. What's the biggest factor in the Elks' quest for their first win today? Is it going to be Tre Ford finally running the offense, or the Elks needing to play better defense? Jay, I'll start with you on that. Those will be our two biggest storylines that we're going to discuss momentarily.
Well, I'll put this caveat out there that I believe Tre Ford is going to be okay. That is funny, by the way. He has, he can get out of situations that have actually plagued the Elks thus far. So I'm going to ask, and I'm going to go for option B, which is to ask the defense to step up, to play better, and we'll get to that. We've got our 3 questions coming up, so I don't want to let the entire cat out of the bag. But I did speak with a close friend of mine who's actually a defensive coordinator in the CJFL, very brilliant defensive mind, and we had a good conversation because I didn't know. I was banging my head against the wall. What does this team need to do defensively to change things. So that's what I'm going to go with, is the defense steps up. I think that's a bigger storyline because unfortunately in the last 4 or 5 games, it's been the same things, and it mostly starts with big plays. Big plays that have cost the Elks points and quick drives that lead to points.
Right now on Twitter, you could get in touch with us, 780-218-9999. That is the Paris Jewelers inbox. Or you could jump into the Nasty Chat on YouTube. 53.7% saying the Elks playing better defense. 46.3% saying Tre Ford running the offense. Mr. Noon saying, adding on Twitter, it's a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. But for the morale of the fan base, he picked Tre Ford. Babu Stash, apologies. He tweeted or texted us in a picture saying, painting a room before the game, a little behind, so hopped off a ladder to turn you guys on. Trey fell off the ladder, paint everywhere. I need a Tre Ford performance to get me back on track. Go Elks. Very disappointed on hardwood.
Maybe we could post that on the Twitter feed.
On hardwood too. We appreciate the dedication for tuning us on.
Round of clicks.
We apologize that you came to turn us on and that happens.
Oh my gosh.
But good luck with that. All the best. With
Anybody that's painted their house or a room has been there, done that. Sad, but true.
Want to quickly just jump into the Nasty Chat. A few comments coming in. Scott, should be an exciting game with Tre Ford behind center. Hoping we get our first win. Joe, cool. I have a good feeling about this one. Charlie, think the Elks can pull off what the Bombers did to BC. Maybe the Stars are lined up properly today. We'll see. Surely can't go down 0-8. That coming, saying ouch on that one. And then VR Montenegro, let Tre cook. And I agree. Let Tre cook. That's what I've been saying for the last couple days on the station, too. Let Tre cook. And with that, cool bet. The game day parlay. We will get to our props of the game, but we got the game day parlay build. Tre Ford 1+ passing TD. Tre Ford 1+ rushing TD. So 2 different TDs, throwing for 1 and rushing for at least 1. Him rushing for 40 yards. Eugene Lewis having 65+ yards receiving, and the Elks covering 3.5. The line dropped since yesterday. Yesterday was 3.5. Today when I woke up, it dropped down to 3.5.
Didn't it start at 5.5?
That's where it was yesterday.
Yeah.
It dropped. And the Elks to cover 3.5. That's plus 850. Also, Pat Gregoire from Coolback, Canada. He had built the Tre time parlay earlier. Tre Ford, 225+ passing yards, 60+ rushing yards, and the Elks to cover 5.5. That's plus 425. Go to Coolbet, click on exclusives. You got those for you to choose from. Exclusively from Coolbet, as they also always give us those little bit of boosting. Let's jump into our 3 stories of the game. And number 1, it is, without question, Tre Ford getting the start. You've already alluded to a little bit and discussed, the fact that you think that there's going to be bigger plays attempted, at least, when it comes to the passing game. Overall, what are you watching for when Tre Ford takes to the field tonight? How are you going to be judging Tre Ford and, evaluating him?
I just want to see game management. I want to see drives put together. Because don't forget, this Saskatchewan Roughrider defense boasts the #1 rush defense in the CFL.
Yes, they do.
By a mile. It's not even close statistically. So, are you going to run Javon Leake up the middle and Justin Rankin up the... Probably not. So there's going to be a little bit more added. And you may call it a perfect storm. That now you have a mobile quarterback that's going to attack those edges and hold those linebackers in. So you could see a defense that's the #1 rush defenders in the league give up some big rushing yards tonight because they have to deal with Tre Ford on play action. So that's note number 1. Tre Ford, slide, head first, foot first. I don't care. Slide, protect the ball, protect yourself. That is the #1. I guess defense against a running quarterback is to shake him up, take a penalty. Who cares? You'll have coaches that'll say, I don't care if he's halfway into a slide, take his head off. That's just the ebbs and flows of having a running quarterback that's this dangerous with his legs. So, and you look at the facts of the numbers, Matty. In the last 29 games for Edmonton, Tre Ford is the only quarterback to have a win. 4-7 last year.
29 games, jeez.
Taylor Cornelius 0-10, Daigie 0-1, Macbeth 0-7. 29
I
games.
didn't think of it that way. Because I've been going, over the last 2.5 seasons, the Elks have 8 wins, and he has 5 of them.
In the last 29 games.
Jeez.
So in Trey we trust. Let's just put that, And don't forget, this is a great receiving core. Look at who you've got.
There's
right?
players. There's weapons.
Players. And don't forget, his number one target, or I guess the guy that, gave the most and was, I guess, the least expectant of that was Gavin Cobb. Came out of nowhere last year and showed up as Trey's trusted resource for getting the football around. So I expect a big night from these receivers tonight. It'd be nice to see, and pardon me if I'm stealing anything of your thunder, but Geno Lewis has been underused this year. That's fair. That's pretty clear to see, right? It'd be interesting to see what happens when Tre Ford comes in there. Does Geno Lewis now become the number one target? Does he spread it around? Does, Mayala's numbers touches go down while Cobb's go up? It'll be interesting to watch that tonight.
Well, the Cobb, I'm expecting to see an increase. Dylan Mitchell started off the season really strong, and he's dipped. Part of that is MBT just hasn't looked at him. Eugene Lewis is the second on the Elks receiving core when it comes to targets. He's at 51 targets this season. Curly Gitten's the highest at 56, but that makes sense because MBT...
That's Macbeth's guy.
That was his guy.
Yeah.
I could see those numbers dropping a little bit with Gittens, and I could see Cobb's, Lewis's, and Dylan Mitchell's increasing. I could see those being the three guys that Tre Ford is going to be targeting in this. If Tre Ford gets going, this is where I get excited with him as a starting quarterback, because if he can become that quarterback that fans and myself want him to become, it's hard for, the Riders can have the number one rush defense, but if you're a defensive coordinator having to game plan against the Elks, you have to game plan for a mobile quarterback who could beat you with his legs. Well, that might open up the running game, and Javon Leak, as we said last week, and he's got some speed, maybe he takes advantage of that. And if Tre Ford can get out of the pocket, what do you do? Are you going to come play up to get to Tre Ford? If you do, he might hit his open receiver. So the thing I'm going to be watching most when it comes to Tre Ford is the two things. It's that passing stuff. It's the accuracy that he's going to have with his ball. That, to me, was probably the number one thing he needed to work on this past offseason, was fine-tuning his touch and his throw. Sometimes the accuracy is not fully there, and you see a receiver having to jump a little higher or whatever to catch that ball. Also, going through your checkdowns, going through your order, if you will. Don't just immediately run. Mm-hmm. That's the sign of a true quarterback. That's a sign, if you go in the States, that's the stuff Lamar Jackson had to learn too. The moment you look at your one target, if it's not there, don't just immediately start running. Try to see if there's another receiver open. Try to see. And if the pocket then is completely gone or no one's there, then you could use your legs. But, be a quarterback first, runner second. And that's the thing where I think sometimes with Tre Ford and with running quarterbacks is they try to be a little bit too much the runner before a quarterback. And eventually you're going to get beat with that. Eventually teams are going to catch you on that one. But if you can be a passer first who can run, that's impossible. That's almost impossible to stop at that point, in my mind.
Well, and don't forget, there's been 7 games of understudying McLeod Bethel-Thompson, who is a proven, when he's healthy, when he's at his best, he's a proven pocket passer. So does that now translate, and does that rub off on Tre Ford a bit? But I will tell you one thing. A scrambling quarterback, or a quarterback that's able to keep those plays alive, is terrifying for defensive backs. Terrifying. Because they call it a scramble rule, where there are established rules that the receivers have when quarterback is scrambling. Okay, low guy goes high guy comes back to the ball. That's almost impossible to cover. That's why you see those when quarterbacks are running out of what was a sure sack, and then they get out of the pocket and roll towards the sideline. You see them throw into a receiver that doesn't have anybody within 10 yards of them. That's because of these scramble rules. That's the difference that Tre Ford can bring.
Well, and the part of that, though, is he has to be able to throw the ball.
Right.
Because if it's just running, all they have to do is keep running forward, and they don't have to worry about the pass.
Yeah.
Because they're going to get to him.
No question.
But if he could find that, gets out of the pocket and know when to throw it and when not to throw it, now it's just like, how do you deal with that?
It's hard to deal with.
All of a sudden
it's
he's going to
hard
drop
to
it
deal
off, or he's going to take off with it. And it's such an exciting threat. Because that's exciting football. Like, MBT could be 7-0, and it would be great. It wouldn't be never have been an exciting 7-0, I don't think, just because of the style of quarterback he is.
Right.
people would have been loving the 7-0.
I don't know about that. That's a
What?
That's a,
You don't think that he's as exciting?
7-0 would be like, oh my God, he is
I'm
the
saying,
best.
Yeah, people would be saying that, but it wouldn't be as exciting as if Tre Ford was
7-0.
like the way he's running. Okay, what I meant, maybe take away the record there. MBT could be as good as he can be. It's never going to be as exciting as Tre Ford when he's good.
No, and and
that gives the fans something to be excited for.
Exactly.
And as much as football should never fully take into account what the fans want or business.
Yeah, it should.
No, they need to go. Or football organizations, sports organizations, you need to focus on winning. But with where this Elks team is, and with the history of it since 2006. They're in a position where they actually have to fully care about what the fans think. And, you heard it when you were down at practice. Jerry has talked about the media. Trey talked about the media, about them announcing the starting quarterback early. We will hear from Tre Ford later in the show. But Trey saying, he found that the news partly because of the media was talking about it.
Crazy to hear.
Right? But that's where we are with this team.
That's where it's at.
Everyone wants Tre Ford. Everyone wants Tre Ford. I'm still surprised we're seeing Tre Ford. Not going to lie.
I'm not.
I'm shocked by it. I am more curious also. Well, there's the one question I'm going to throw you right away here. But one, how long of his leash? To me, he deserves,
unlimited.
He should get 4 games minimum.
He's unlimited. Minimum. He's the quarterback.
But do you buy MBT's been banged up the last couple of weeks?
Yep.
That has now come out.
Yep. He said it. Jarius Jackson said it.
Why not?
But the problem is, here's the problem, Matty. If he's banged up, and Jarius Jackson before last game where they laid an egg against Hamilton said, I've got to go with the quarterback that puts us in the best situation to win. Well, if you know Macbeth is nicked up or injured, hey, nobody's Superman. Everybody gets injured. And from what I understand, and Macbeth said it. He was dealing with some off-the-field things. I don't know what that is. Hope everything's okay, obviously, but that can get in your psyche. As a quarterback, you don't want to have that brought onto the field. So you're nicked up, you're maybe not in the best headspace, and then, you're laying an egg, and you still go back to him at half.
That's why I don't buy into this. That's why I believe this is just a little bit of a help soften the blow of MBT losing his job. Because if he truly was hurt and there was an issue, why wouldn't you have just made that pull at halftime? Because you could have come out and said, you want to know something? Injury after the game. MBT's just been banged up. He couldn't do it. We still believe in MBT and stuff, but he's banged up. No, instead they go a lot further with him, and it was just, and nothing was moving. I just look at it and go, they went with that as a narrative to try to soften the blow for MBT. Because we saw how angry he was on the sideline.
You could be right.
We should have heard something a little bit sooner.
I'm only responding to
I'll point it. Why isn't that on the injury report? Why isn't something on the injury? Because would the CFL not have to look into that? So that's where I can't buy into that.
It's a nick, and it could be something that maybe not be on the injury report. That's what I'm having a strong sense of. There was things off the field
you're supposed to put it on there so that.
How do you put an off-the-field issue on the injury report?
Then that's not an injury.
All right, then it's an issue.
Okay, but then don't
clearly
say
it was. Yeah, I mean that's a guy. Look, at the end of the day, these are still your players. No matter what, you're their head coach.
It just sounds like a full excuse to me.
Right. Pessimistic Matty would say that.
This is the Green and Gold Kickoff Show. Matt Iwanyk, Jay Milne with you live at Century Casino Sports Bar and Lounge, where every day is game day. Elks Riders coming up in just over 30 minutes' time. You can watch that game on TSN. You can watch the game on TSN right here at Century Casino. As we'll have the sound on, we got the TVs going, and we'll listen to our boy Dustin Nielsen on the call with Glenn Suter. And I'm assuming Britt Dort will be on the sidelines. Let's get to our second story of the game. This ties into our question of the night, which was, what is going to be bigger? Or the bigger factor. Obviously, both are going to have to be factors, but what would be the bigger factor on the Elks getting their first victory? Is it Tre Ford leading the offense, or is the D coming to play and being better defensively? Jay, we're 7 games into this season. I don't know, on 6, maybe 5 of our kickoff shows, we discussed about the defense not being good enough, the defense needing to be better. Can we realistically expect this defense to improve at this point in the season?
No. No, you realistically can't.
No,
they are who they are.
Without changes.
Without
personnel
substantial changes. I mean, injury now. I mean, Marcus Lewis is out. Not necessarily, obviously he's a starter for a reason, so Bynum was not a starter. Bynum's now back in. So you're down a guy. In, I think, the most depleted group on the team, to be honest. The problem is, and like I said, I was racking my brain about this because, okay, You can say, do they have the horses? I don't know that they do. Can they put themselves in good situations and not let anything be, deep behind them? Okay, then they have, a huge 65-yard play that's a 5-yard in that turns into a pass and catch, and it's a touchdown. So I don't necessarily know what the answer is for this defense. I do know they're the second worst defense in the CFL. They give up an average of 30.9 points per game.
Is that good?
That's awful. That's awful. That's awful.
Come on. The offenses shouldn't have to put up 31 points plus per game to win.
But here's what I will say. Even though they are 5-2 and first in the Western Conference right now are the Saskatchewan Roughriders, their offense is nothing to really write home about.
I do like Shea Patterson. I won't lie.
They're middle of the pack in all the statistical categories as far as touchdowns, points per games, all that stuff. And guess who they're right beside?
Edmonton Elks.
Right? So there is a chance here. This isn't a highfalutin, run and gun style offense that, say, you might see from Montreal or BC, prior to the injury, last night? Or 2 nights ago. Anyways, the pass rush, Matty. The pass rush needs to be there. The pass rush has been non-existent. How many times have you... Let's go back to last week because it's closest to mine. How many times was Bo Levi Mitchell uncomfortable in the pocket? How many times was he hurried? How many times was he rushed out of the pocket to go and then run? No, he just sat back there. Dink, doink. Everything was in front of him.
Easy.
So here's what we came to, and I say we because, like I said, this is a group effort from a great football mind in Donnie. Start blitzing a bit more. Get more people involved.
Yeah, that's what I said last week on the post. I'd rather see blitzes and be beaten
you
blitzed and they protected it well, as opposed to sitting back and just watching them pick you apart.
No.
I'd rather be beaten being aggressive than beaten being passive.
Well, and there is a way to blitz. There is a way to do it because as a defensive back, if you're bringing a fifth defender through the hole and going towards a quarterback, well, you are then playing a little bit off. You're playing maybe instead of starting at 5, 6, 7 yards, you're starting at 10, 11 yards because you're giving yourself that buffer because you know that quarterback has to release the ball in 2.5 seconds or less because your rush will get there. So you're waiting to have them cough up a ball, you go pick it and score a touchdown and be the hero of the game. That's the ideal situation with blitzes. Now, if you're not blitzing properly and there's no pressure getting to quarterback, you're leaving those defensive backs on islands that simply can't be covered. But if you're in the CFL and you have 6, 7, 8, 9 seconds to complete a pass,
you're finding someone.
You're fine. You're good. You're gonna look really good, and you're gonna throw 5 touchdowns like Bo Levi Mitchell did last game.
We, to the beginning of this conversation about the story of the defense, can they get better? The one thing I will say maybe is a glimmer of hope, could this defense get better, is actually be Tre Ford. And that is, we saw it last week, is that spark of the offense maybe the thing that they need to spark them a little bit. We look, again, prevent defense, the Hamilton Tiger Cats not fully going for it last week, but at the same time, they did make a challenge offensively late in that game. So there's a little bit of try. But they hold the Ticats to a 3-0 right off the bat once Tre Ford comes into the lineup, and then they forced a fumble. They came out and they played actually rather hard in the 2 series, and we saw a little bit of a jump from them. Is that is Tre Ford starting going to help this defense? And could also Tre Ford at least come from last week? This has not been an issue most of this season, but last week was one, way too many 2-and-outs, way too many short drives from the Elks, so the defense maybe get a little tired. Can Tre Ford just keep the defense off the field a little bit? But that's the one thing, because I agree with you. Personnel-wise,
what's that say, Matty?
Eliminate big plays. But personnel-wise, I think we're too far into the season for them to figure it out.
Well, they can't.
This isn't the team that's going to figure it out based on that part of it. But maybe the one glimmer of hope I have is Tre Ford sparking them. Maybe that's the thing that you need. And maybe the offense, all of a sudden, they're putting up points and again, because they were putting up points earlier, and that leads the defense to want to lock it in a little bit. That's the only thing I'm going to go with outside of they need to bring in new personnel, but that's also why I'm not going to see with Tre Ford as the starting quarterback of this team, and all of a sudden this team is going to go on like a 7-1 streak, because I don't think the defense is going to be good enough to match it.
Maybe it sparked everybody.
Is the biggest reason why they're 0-7.
Maybe
more than offense.
Yeah, maybe it sparked defense coordinator Jason Shivers. to run something different, to challenge his defense, to do something, because now that they have Trey there that can maybe carry a drive for, maybe he can have 7 or 8 drives a game that go for 6 or plays or more. You know what I mean? Like sustained drives where your defense is coming off and having a breather. Maybe now that opens up Jason Shivers to say, okay, we're going to let the horses run. We're going to blitz. We're going to be a little bit more aggressive. I think that, and you said it, the defense is more responsible for this 0-7 record than the offense.
They are.
Absolutely. Right? So if the defense can step up, and that's why I voted for that on Twitter, or X, sorry, it's
Twitter.
that Twitter, thank you, is that this defense is, if they're good, and they can, and you don't have to be world beaters, go out there and hold them to 20 points, not 30.
Well, I've always felt if my defense is going to give up 20 to 24 points, I can live with that.
In the CFL, you
That's
can.
in the CFL because I think my offense should be able to go get 24 to 27 points a game.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of those numbers right there. That's where I would always look at it. So it's just a tall order to ask them 7 games of the season to shave 10 points off. But can they shave 4 points off? And then can the Elks offense get 27 points and make it 27, 26, in that range? You should be able to. But the other part to this, I will say, too, is, at least for the offense part of this, the defense has caused some turnovers this season.
I was just going to say what you're saying.
The offense hasn't turned those into points, though.
Gosh.
And I was
just going to say that.
That's part of the issue, though, is that when the defense has made the big plays, the offense hasn't taken it. We've ripped on the defense because there's game. I can't remember which game it was. Might have been the Toronto game. I think it was, where MBT and the Elks offense drove down the field, got a touchdown. Immediately, the defense gave up a touchdown.
Yeah.
Defense not bailing out the offense there. There have been times where the offense just hasn't bailed out the defense who've made that big play. If the defense goes out there and makes a play, gets it, picks off Shea Patterson, get points.
Well, in the last 2 games,
points.
Maddie, how many times have we seen a turnover, especially early in the game? A turnover on downs, an interception that led. I think there was 3 series in last week's Hamilton game where there were turnovers, whether it be a fumble, pick, or a turnover on downs. It led to 3 stinking points out of a possible 21. That's not good enough. Now, if the defense is cooking like they have been, and I will say, it seems to be earlier in the game, but if they are, maybe Tre Ford can actually capitalize on that and get in the red zone and finish the drives. It just has happened too many times where, and don't kid yourself, that is an emotional letdown. If you're laying it all out there, you're going out, you're getting the ball, and you're giving it to your offense, you're saying, here, it's on a plate, take the ball, score, and they do nothing with it, that is a letdown. So that's a great point, Maddie. Good thing great mind think alike, because I was just about to say that. You beat me to it, you bugger.
I'm trying to look at there's a stats here, and if I'm understanding it correctly, the Edmonton Elks, they have scored 40 points off of 13 turnovers this season, I think. It's done in a weird way. It says opposition points off turnovers, not like their. So I'm assuming that means, because the first column's Edmonton at 34, then it's opposition at 40.
That's the averages. That's the league average. So they're clearly below the league average off of points on turnovers.
No, I think those are their games this season.
Oh, their
opponents combined have had 13 turnovers, but the opponent's points off turnovers is either 40 or 34. I don't know why they added opponent here too. Points off turnovers. So the Elks, I don't know which number it is.
Well,
maybe it's 34.
Regardless, we know from the last 2 games that we've seen several turnovers that have led to nothing or 3 points. Not good enough.
The final storyline of the game, and actually I'm switching it up on you.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Spicy.
Beforehand, we're going to talk about the fact that these 2 teams met earlier in the season.
That's boring. Switch it up.
Does that play a factor? But I don't think it does. Shea Patterson didn't play.
That's 8 games ago.
Absolutely. Boris Beatty, you were at practice this week.
My guy.
Boris Beatty, you the president of the Boris Beatty fan club over here.
No. Great point.
What did he say to you this week at practice?
Boris Beatty admitted that he's been struggling. I mean, we've seen it. We have eyes. You have eyes, Maddie. We've seen it. It's been awful. He's been awful. He admitted it, which I find as an athlete, if you're able to admit that and not just say, give the same cardboard cutout answers, we're trying as a team to get better, and blah, blah. That's BS. Tell me you screwed up. Tell me you're trying to get better at it. And boom, I think that's a huge thing. I mean, look at last week. He was 2 for 2 on field goals. That's a victory. That's 100%. His lowest in the league average is 67% before last game. So you can only build on that. You can only get more consistent. And I just appreciate the fact that he admitted that and what he said was actually quite interesting. He said that he's been having problems striking the ball at the right angle. I'm not a kicker. I've never been a kicker. Don't want to be a kicker. But if you are a kicker and you're hitting the ball in the wrong spot, I could see
that
that's
doesn't
a problem.
sound good.
Doesn't sound
I
good.
don't think that's a recipe for success.
How you get, maybe that was a mental block. Maybe that was just, we've all been on the putting green where we get the
Let's
yips.
not bring that up.
The putting yips. Maybe he had the kicking yips. I'm just excited that he admitted it and faced the music and said, yeah, I've stunk. Those 2 games were on me. But I'm getting better. This team is still supportive of me. The locker room is positive. It was just nice to see. And I wouldn't doubt if he continues, and goes and plays well tonight. I mean, if you're
he's got to. Like, he could say all the right things. He could say he's figured it out. He could say he was kicking it poorly.
Proof's in the pudding.
But you have to go do it because you've screwed way too much this season.
Yep.
Like, I feel like at the very least, until I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, he's got to be virtually perfect through Labor Day.
Let's just say
because,
this.
Like, I will always give a kicker the benefit of the doubt on a 50-plus.
Good point.
It's not Sergio Castillo here. Like, if you're going for a 54 and you miss, like, I'm not going to be like,
what a loser.
Again. If you go for a 42 and you miss, I'm going to be like, well, I don't care. Are you still not striking it properly? Like, he has done too many bad kicks this season that I'm not giving him the benefit of the doubt until we probably get to Labor Day. Great. You think you figured it out? Go prove it. And don't just go prove it tonight. Don't go prove it last week. Go prove it next week and the week after and the week after that and get me through Labor Day. The game on the Monday, the Labor Day Monday. Get me through that and I'll feel good. I'll feel like he's back. Until then, I'm still going to be worried every time he comes to the field to take a field goal.
There is something liberating, though, is that admitting to yourself and multiple TV cameras that are in front of you, including the TSN camera that was there, that you've sucked and owning it. There is something to be said about that in an athlete's mind to say, okay.
He's still the 10th best kicker in the Canadian Football League at 68.8%.
Which is something to say in a 9-team league.
The only other kicker below 80. And he's the other kicker tonight. So we're going to have the battle of the bottom kickers. I'm surprised by Brett Lawther. Although, actually, with Brett Lawther, I know he's had at least 2 misses of 55-plus. I will say that. So that would put him at least at 18 of 21 if he didn't go for those, which is a lot better percentage.
Well, I'd say great to bring that up, Matty, because I was one who I've been very hard on him.
Yes, but you were at practice when you brought it up on the Hangout yesterday, and I know the Hangout is this great program that everyone watches, but somebody may have missed it by accident yesterday.
How dare? How lewd.
So we want to make sure we bring it up because I know everyone in Edmonton stops between 9 and 11 Monday through Friday listening to the Hangout, especially when you're on Fridays.
Well, I was going to say, especially when you're hosting or when it's only a 3-panel crew, so you have to zoom the camera in so they can see you more clearly.
And no one wants that.
Well, I know some people that do.
We've got...
this guy does.
He was just staring too that whole time. We're live at Century Casino Sports Bar and Lounge for the Green and Gold Kickoff Show. By the way, it's not you just come down and watch the football game with us. We do have some tickets to give away too for the next Edmonton Elks game, which will take place August 11th as the BC Lions come to town on Sunday next week. There will be no Vernon Adams in that one, so things kind of open up for a little bit. The Edmonton Elks, might I say, a 2-game winning streak ahead for us. But we got some tickets to give away for that. So come on down. You got to be here to win those. So come join us. Get in on that cheese and jalapeno smoky with waffle fries, or get the prime rib sandwich, or just have anything off of their menu. Play the games and watch some football here, or you can get on the ponies because that's going on.
I think that's a great point made by Ken.
Ken, 780-218-9999 in the Parish Jewelers inbox. Guys, it makes me sad and frustrated to see Castillo kick a 60-yard field goal the other night, which was his second of the season, by the way, and that Jones let him return to Winnipeg over money. I hope Beatty's on the rebound, but man, what if Castillo was still an Elk? It wasn't just about money, if I'm not mistaken. It was also the fact that the Elks management team last season, they screwed up the global position, and they forgot to get a starting global player. And so they drafted Dean Faithful, and Dean Faithful was going to be their kicker because they had nothing else. They had nowhere else to go with the global position. And so they had to cut Sergio Castillo. So it was a little bit of money. It was also because of the fact they screwed up planning their global spot. And it cost them dearly, Sergio Castillo, who has missed some kicks this year. I know because he's on my CFL fantasy team, and I've been upset about that. But he's also hit 260s. Is it the first CFL kicker to do that in the same season? I think that's the stat that came up. That was our 3 storylines of this game. Is Tre Ford getting the start for the Edmonton Elks?
Round of clicks for Tre Ford?
Round of click for Tre Ford. My boy.
Maddie's guy.
Going to be a proud dad watching this game today.
I brought tissues for you.
I'm excited to see what he can do.
I hope
know that
for
there's
you
gonna be
that
struggles though. But if he goes off today,
you keep saying that. I'd drop that.
He's a young quarterback, and
I know, but he said at practice
this team's not good enough.
He said at practice, there's no pressure on him. What's the pressure? They're 0-7. Are they gonna, hey Renee? Are they gonna? What are they gonna? There's zero pressure. You're 0-7. Just go out there and play, man.
The pressure is.
There's our guy.
I'm a big fan of his. He's
Huge.
here every game. We have a great. Whenever we're tearing down, we have a nice CFL chat with one of the guys that's here. That's a regular. He's great. Yep. Got his Raiders hat on. The pressure is. There's a lot of people that are wanting Tre Ford, and they're expecting immediate results. Maybe.
I don't know that they are, Matty.
I hope not. I hope not, because again, this team is poor.
They're expecting a little glimpse of what happened in the last 9 minutes of last game.
If you could get
if you can
60% of that,
if you can stretch that over
then
4
I think
quarters,
things are going to be very exciting.
It's a win-win.
In BC or in Saskatchewan last year, it was a great day for Edmonton against the province of Saskatchewan as the Alberta Golden Bears went to Saskatoon and took down the Huskies for the first time in years. And on that exact same night, Tre Ford and the Elks went down to Regina and beat the Riders.
Wow.
It was also a night Whale and the Wolf was playing because I remember going to go see them at the Starlight Room. But it was just fantastic to watch. But Tre Ford was all over the place, and he had a nice throw to Eugene Lewis. I'm sure some Riders players who were part of that team, there's been changes. Corey Mace is their head coach. He's not there. They made some changes on defense. They weren't there, but I'm sure some of those guys remember last season. But if it's anything like what we saw last year, we're in for a good football game. We got our keys to an Elks victory to get to. We got Jay's prediction. We will hear from Tre Ford momentarily here. But let's get to our cool bet prop of the game. Oh, DeGrasse?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not looking good for tomorrow.
No, you're not.
He had, I think, the second worst time.
He eked out a spot in the Olympic 100-meter semifinal. That's semifinal.
I'm still holding on. I'm still crossed fingers for Andre DeGrasse because
Me
I
too.
bet on our Canadians.
I'd love to. I don't want to win that bet. I said it. I don't want to win that bet. It was
Canada,
$20.
France, men's basketball, it sounds like. It's going to be Canada versus France.
Oh, you figured it out?
It's they finished
When is
second.
that?
I don't know. I'll look that up when we're listening to Tre Ford.
That should be a winnable game.
France has been a huge disappointment this tournament so far. But it is still Wemby. But Canada should be able to get past them. The only thing I haven't looked up yet is the draw. Are they on the side of the bracket with Germany or on the side of the bracket with U.S.? I'll have to look that up. Before we get to Jay's prop of the game and then my prop of the game, reminder, exclusives at CoolBet. We got the game day parlay. Tre Ford, 1+ passing TD, 1+ rushing TD, 40 rushing yards. Eugene Lewis, 65 receiving yards, and the Elks covering 3.5. That's at plus 850. Pat Gregoire has the Tre time. Tre Ford for 225+ yards, rushing for 60+. Also, the Edmonton Elks covering 5.5. That's at plus 425. And there's Shea Patterson, Tre Ford, both recording 1 touchdown run. That's plus 300. Coolbet.com. Click on exclusives. Your prop of the game. I see.
My prop of the game, I'm going back to my guy, Gavin Cobb. I think even though he's listed as a backup.
Oh, he's not on the Coolbet site.
He is.
Where?
Touchdown.
Oh, for that. I see where you're going with.
TD score, plus 425 for Gavin Cobb. Sprinkle a little action on that, would you? I mean, I'm going from history. They have a history. Do Tre Ford and Gavin Cobb. So why not go to that well and see what happens?
No one likes unders, so I'm just going to throw this out there, but that's not going to be mine. Curly Gittens Jr. under 4.5 catches.
I like that bet.
I can see that one. Just
because Gavin Cobb's going to take 2 or 3 of those.
I can see him going to Eugene Lewis. I can see him going to Dylan Mitchell. And I can see maybe Curly Gittens coming a little bit lower.
What is it, under 4.5?
Under 4.5 is plus 115. That's just something I'm throwing out there. Just something to keep an eye on.
Oh, you didn't take it?
No, that's what I'm just it's a little.
Are you Mr. Leanin right now?
That's a lean. I haven't Mr. Leaned in a long time. There's my lean. No, Eugene Lewis, 53.5 is what they have the number at on CoolBet. And I know I threw him into the game day parlay, but 53.5 is small to me.
I think that's 2 receptions in this offense. Could be.
He's going to get. I think he's the biggest beneficiary of Tre Ford as a starting quarterback.
Sure.
You
do?
I think he's bigger than over Gavin Cobb. Absolutely.
Okay.
It's either Dylan Mitchell or it's Eugene Lewis. It's one of those two that's going to be the biggest beneficiary.
Well, we were
I'm
talking
going to go with
about
Eugene.
it.
I think part of you're Tre Ford. You're coming in as a young quarterback. Tube Socks is now here. I think you're looking at a Eugene Lewis. Because what did we see a few weeks ago? You throw the ball near Eugene, he's going to snag that.
Go to your comfort zone.
So I think there's a little bit of comfort there. So I'm going to go with...
And a vet.
Yeah.
A guy that can help you out.
That's why I'm
kind of like
go
Reed's going to help me out, you know?
Absolutely.
He's going to guide me through
the
abyss.
Show with Jay Milne coming... Edmonton Sports Talk in fall from 3 until 6. So that's my cool bet prop of the game. We'll get to our keys to an Elks victory as well as Jay's prediction. But before we do that, let's hear from the starting quarterback of your Edmonton Elks, Tre Ford.
You came in a very similar situation last year to get your first start last season. What did you learn from that experience that maybe you can use this year coming in a very similar situation?
Yeah, so just from last year and even the year before, I just realized you never really know when you're going to be called, so you always got to be ready. So not that I wasn't ready last year, but I definitely was more prepared this year, especially with McLeod's help and learning how to prepare to go execute and play games. So I feel like I was definitely more prepared this year to go in, and the situation I went in was ideal for me, but not for our team, just because there was nothing to lose, right? Because we were down by so much.
Yeah. Tell me about, you probably watched it on tape a couple of times now, if not more. Tell me your thoughts on what you saw in your performance on Sunday.
I thought it was pretty good. I mean, there's always little things you can critique, but when you play football, nothing's going to be perfect. You know what I mean? There's always going to be things that don't go your way. There's things that will go your way. You kind of just have to be able to adapt and go on the fly.
You were still sitting on the bench. Is it in the third that fans started chanting your name? What are you thinking as you're hearing that?
I mean, obviously, I love support, but then I also feel bad for McLeod, right? Because he's going out there and trying to do everything he can to win, right? So I want to be a good teammate. So I appreciate the support, but I also got to back my teammate up at the same time. And I just knew at some point, I have to be ready if my name is called. And so I was prepared to go in mentally and physically. And I mean, physically I haven't played, so I was definitely ready to go in physically. But I was ready to go in and play, and I just went out and had fun.
What kind of expectation do you have for yourself?
I just expect to go in and do my job. I'm not going to go in and try to be a superhero and change what we've been doing. I'm just going to try to do what I can do, execute at a high level, and get my receivers and running backs the ball and let them, be the heroes and be the superstars.
Trey, how do you think you've grown from last season? I mean, you got 10 starts last year. That's a lot of starts in a season. How do you think you've grown?
Just being more comfortable in the pocket and, being able to get to those second and third reads is probably the biggest improvement that I've had so far.
And how, we know you can run. It's pretty obvious, but how do you want to use your legs even more effectively? And as far as pocket presence and things like that.
Well, I want to use my legs actually the least amount as possible. If I don't have to run, it'd be ideal. But it's definitely a threat on the defense. So I want to make sure that I am keeping the defense honest and making them account for my legs, even if I don't use them. So.
Have you practiced differently with McLeod this year? Have you practiced so far this season in a different way than you did last year? Focusing on different things.
Practice is pretty similar. I would say it's more game prep and just film and looking at defenses is what he's definitely helped me with. But I also feel like it is kind of more important than being on the field, because on the field, you're throwing the ball. That's all it really is, and you have to go through those reads. But if you're locked in the meeting room and you know where you're supposed to go with the ball, it makes throwing it a lot easier.
Can you put your finger on one thing that you've really picked up from McLeod?
He just really, you could say X's and O's, but even stuff outside of football, just how organizations operate and coaches and other players on the team, how to handle certain situations, just everything as a whole. I've kind of just taken it all in.
Trey, what about the pressure that must come with this situation? I mean, you're coming into a team that's 0-7. The fans saw something that they haven't seen this season in a very small glimpse. How are you handling that? And walk us through what that's like in your mind.
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel too much pressure. I always get nervous for the first play, though. I don't know why. It's just the first play, and then I'm good after that. But pressure-wise, I don't feel like there's a ton of pressure because, I mean, I'm a young guy. We're 0-7. You know what I mean? What are our expectations for our team right now from the outside world, right? They're not expecting a lot. I feel a little bit of pressure from our teammates and coaches and stuff because I want to, go out there and win and prove we can win with them. But the outside, if they're like, oh, Trey has to go throw for 700 yards and 8 touch, like that doesn't matter to me, to be honest. As long as I can get out here, if I throw for 200 yards and 87% or whatever it is, as long as we're winning and they're getting the ball and doing what they can do, then I'm happy.
Well, and your last win came in Regina against Saskatchewan as a starter.
Yeah.
And you relied on different targets than what the fans have seen thus far, specifically your relationship with Gavin Cobb. That seems like you guys have a connection, obviously being drafted the same year, going through some injuries at the same time.
Yeah.
Can you speak on that relationship with Gavin Cobb as well as the wealth of talent you have at the wide receiver position?
Yeah, so I haven't actually got a lot of reps with Gavin at all, which is kind of weird because, we are kind of in the same situation. But I got a couple with him today, and I actually love throwing to him just with how athletic he is and how fast he is. I mean, he's one of our fastest receivers, and once he's down the field, too, he has a 40-something inch vertical. So even if you throw it high, he's going up to get it, and then he's short enough to get the low one if you need him to. So he's definitely a dynamic receiver, and I love having him in our lineup.
And there was Tre Ford with the media earlier this week, which includes Jay Milne, this guy right here next to me. This guy. Just speaking of Coolbet, before we listened to Tre Ford there, who sent this in? Where did I? Was it? It must have been Scolding Gord. No, or maybe it was in the Nasty Chat. Nasty Chat, Spency 5 cents. Apologies, Spency. There's some good combo cards on Coolbet main page too. Let Trey cook and the Elk Stinger parlay. I didn't see an Elk Stingers parlay. Maybe it is there, but I just put the Elks +4 to cover today. And the Stingers money line against Calgary tomorrow. Screw you, Calgary. We're going to take the Battle of Alberta. -132. That parlay is +245. So you can bet on the two Edmontons. Elks to cover tonight. Right now that line's up to +4. And you take the Stingers money line. That's +245. If there's an exclusive somewhere, though, jump on that as well. I just don't see anything myself. Jay, let's get to your key to an Elks victory.
The key to the Elks victory for me, and I put my money where my mouth is on our Twitter poll, which is very close, by the way. But the Elks front seven, can they get pressure? Can they dial up pressure and make Shea Patterson uncomfortable? Force him to throw the ball early. Force him to get out of the pocket. Force him to do anything but sit in a pocket like a marshmallow, just sitting back there, having all day. If that's the case, you're never going to win a game. Plain and simple. So look, please, for the love of God, for these fans that need this 700th win, still chasing the elusive 700th win, get some pressure on Shea Patterson, dial some things up. Jason Shivers, I know he always listens to these games while he's in the tunnel waiting to go out. Dial it up, big boy.
It gets them pumped up. Them pumped up. Where do I want to go with my key to a game?
Boris Beatty?
No, what's? I guess to Tre Ford. Don't turnover.
Just do what you
clean.
do.
Just be clean. Play it clean. Like
I wouldn't even say that.
Like,
just do what you do.
Well,
be exciting.
Well, I know.
If he's exciting, I think the Elks win. If he's mundane and forced to be not electric.
I don't want him forcing a throw. I don't like. I'll say this. What he learned last year, he talked about it on the hangout when we had him on last year. He said the game slowed down for him, and you saw it when he took to the field.
Yep.
Don't go forcing things.
Yep.
If it's not there and you have to throw the ball away, even if you can't, the run's not there. Like, don't force a run. Don't force a throw. Just play a clean game.
I've never been more excited to watch a game.
I'm nervous.
Here under the stars at Century Casino.
And I'm on the opposite. I'm just nervous.
Sports bar and lounge like I am right now.
The president of the Tre Ford fan club that I am. I've been pumping this up for months.
And Mr. Sox is here?
And
happy?
It's just one of those, like, I want my boy to do well. Your prediction?
And you're my boy, so I want you to do well through your boy. 38-34 Elks. I don't think either of these defenses can stop much. I think it's still going to be a tight game. That wouldn't be great for your parlay, so I'm going to change that to 38-35 Elks. Supporting my boy.
Thank you.
Supporting my boy.
Appreciate that. You mentioned the question of the night on Twitter. 54% saying the Elks playing D is going to be the bigger factor to the Elks winning their first game of the season as opposed to Tre Ford running the offense. Not saying it's not important, both. But the more important one is defense. And you know what the saying is?
Defense wins championships.
Look at the minds.
I'm a
one.
defensive player.
Well, I love defense. I'm a Ravens fan.
You
know,
would.
like that's I'm a defensive.
You should.
I
Yeah.
love defense almost more than offense. Thanks to everyone for tuning in to the Green and Gold Kickoff Show. Trey Ford. It's time to see if he can cook. Let Trey cook. We're going to find out in moments on TSN. Our boy Dusty with the call. Thanks to everyone for tuning in here on EdmontonSports.com. Tune in iHeartRadio as well as on YouTube. Still time to come down to Century Casino Sports Bar and Lounge and watch the game with us and Tube Socks here. We also got some tickets to give away for the next game. But if you can't come down, enjoy the football game. And we'll chat with you once it's over on the Green and Gold Post Game Show.